All right, pull up a chair, crack a beer, shove some chips in your face. Uncle Sam's got a story for you, and this one's a doozy. It's about a Tuesday that went from 0 to 100 faster than a greased weasel on a water slide, all because of a blonde, a badge, and a bag full of, well, you'll see. The sun was beaten down on the Nevada blacktop like a bill collector with a baseball bat. The road was mine. Every last shimmering, heat-hazed inch of it belonged to me and the beast. That's my rig. A Peterbilt 379, long nose, chrome stacked so high you could use 'em to tickle an angel, and a paint job the color of a good strong cup of truck stop coffee. She ain't just a truck, fellas. She's a 40-ton, 18-wheeled Declaration of Independence, from ex-wives, from taxmen, from anyone who thinks a man ought to eat a salad for lunch. She's my office, my diner, and my castle, all rolling on a river of asphalt. And I was feeling good. I mean, real good. The kind of good you only feel when your logbook is, let's call it, creatively managed. Your belly is full, and the radio is cranked up loud enough to scare the buzzards off a gut pile. I had Lagrange blasting out the windows, a soundtrack for conquering the wasteland. I even gave a little toot of the air horn to a couple of kids in a minivan, got the arm pump back. Yeah, king of the road, that was me. It's a feeling you can't buy, you can't fake, and you sure as hell can't get sitting in some cubicle staring at a spreadsheet. It's the rumble in your bones, the world scrolling past your window, the pure, uncut freedom of the horizon. I'd just escaped a joint back in Winnemucca called the Greasy Skillet. Place smelled like heaven and looked like a health code violation had thrown up on another health code violation. But the food, oh, the food. I'd conquered their signature challenge, the triple bypass burger. Listen to this. 3 half-pound patties, cooked in the sacred grease of 1,000 previous burgers. 6 slices of bacon that fought back, thick-cut and crispy on the edges but still chewy in the middle. A fried egg with a yolk like liquid sunshine, just waiting to pop and anoint the whole glorious mess. And enough melted American cheese to clog a sewer pipe in downtown Chicago. It's served on a bun that's been toasted in butter, and it comes with a steak knife stabbed right through the middle, not for cutting, but as a warning. It's the kind of meal that makes you feel immortal for about an hour, and then makes you question every single choice you've ever made in your life. I was still deep in the immortal phase, patting my gut like it was a prize-winning watermelon at the county fair. I had a little battle scar on my shirt, a smear of what the waitress, a gal named Flo, who had a tattoo of a spark plug on her neck and a voice like gravel in a blender, called Special Sauce. Looked a lot like Thousand Island dressing that had been in a bar fight, but who am I to argue with art? The smell of diesel, fried onions, and pure, unadulterated freedom was thick in the cab. I took a deep breath, my lungs filling with the perfume of my people. This, right here, was the life. No boss breathing down my neck, no missus telling me my snoring was shaking the drywall. Just me, the beast, and 1,000 miles of nobody else's business. Then I saw it, in my big, beautiful West Coast mirror. That mirror is the size of a small country's flag, and it reflects the truth, whether you like it or not. And this truth was a little flicker of red and blue, just a flash, a tiny angry pulse in the shimmering heat, a mosquito of misery coming to suck the joy right out of my afternoon. My heart didn't just sink. It did a full-on swan dive out of my chest, bounced off the floorboards, and tried to burrow its way into the transmission for safety. My stomach, so recently a monument to glorious excess, suddenly felt like a sack of wet cement. The triple bypass burger was staging a protest, a bear, a smoky, a cop, out here in the middle of nowhere, where the lizards pack their own lunch, and the only witnesses are cacti giving you the finger. This is the worst place to see those lights. It means they're bored, and a bored cop is a creative cop. They'll find something. They always find something. I glanced at the speedometer. 5 over. Not a hanging offense, but a good enough excuse for a bored county mountie to ruin my day. Then my mind started racing through the mental checklist of my sins. A rapid-fire slideshow of my professional shortcomings. Tires, a little on the smooth side, let's be honest. One of them looked balder than my Uncle Frank. My weight? Probably pushing it. That last pallet of artisanal hand-carved bird baths wasn't exactly filled with helium. I was pretty sure those things were carved out of depleted uranium. And my logbook? Buddy, that thing was more fiction than a politician's campaign promise. It was my masterpiece of speculative literature. I had myself sleeping in 3 different towns last night, according to that book. A literary marvel, sure, but probably not admissible in court. I'd given myself more sleep than a hibernating bear. The lights got brighter. The siren gave a little whoop-whoop. Just a friendly little, I'm about to ruin your financial quarter. Hello. It's the sound of your wallet getting thinner, the acoustic equivalent of a letter from the IRS. Son of a biscuit, I muttered, easing the beast onto the shoulder. The dust cloud I kicked up was big enough to have its own zip code. A brown mushroom of shame. I killed the engine. The silence that followed was heavy, judgmental even. The only sound was the tick-tick-tick of the cooling engine and the frantic thumping in my own chest, a drum solo of pure panic. I watched in the mirror as the cruiser pulled up behind me, parking at that perfect, intimidating angle. It's a power move. Lets you know who's in charge before a single word is spoken. The door opened, and a single boot hit the gravel. A spit-shined black leather boot that meant business. It gleamed in the harsh sun, a little black star of authority. Then the rest of her unfolded from the car, and I swear the heat haze in the air shimmered a little bit extra, and sweet mother-of-pearl and all her oyster cousins. This wasn't some pot-bellied, donut-fueled deputy named Cletus with a mustache full of crumbs. This was a goddess carved from granite, and pure, uncut authority. She was tall, with a blonde ponytail pulled so tight it looked like it could cut glass. Mirrored aviator sunglasses hid her eyes, but they couldn't hide the storm I knew was brewing behind them. Her uniform was tailored. It hugged curves that the state of Nevada probably should have declared a national park. The kind of curves that cause fender benders and make good men think bad thoughts. The tan fabric was stretched taut across her shoulders and, well, other places. It was a uniform, yeah, but on her, it looked like a costume for a movie I'd definitely pay to see. She walked with a purpose that scared the hell out of me. Each step on that gravel was a drumbeat of my impending doom. A slow, deliberate crunch, crunch, crunch that sounded like my bank account being emptied. She wasn't walking, she was stalking, and I was the 300-pound antelope who'd gotten a little too confident after his big lunch. My palms started sweating. I wiped them on my jeans, which probably just made 'em smell more like French fries. I considered trying to hide the sauce stain on my shirt by sucking in my gut, but it was no use. It was part of me now, a badge of honor from my battle with the burger. It was a Jackson Pollock of culinary victory. She stopped at my door, one hand resting on her hip, right next to the business end of a Glock that looked like it could stop a rhino. She took her time, her head tilting as she looked up at the sheer size of the truck, then at me. It felt like being judged by a much, much hotter version of my high school principal. Her mirrored lenses reflected a distorted, wide-angle image of me in my cab, looking like a guilty bear in a cage. "License, registration, and logbook," she said. Her voice was low, smooth, and had 0% patience in its ingredients list. It was the kind of voice that could make a man confess to crimes he hadn't even thought of yet. I suddenly felt the urge to confess about that time in 4th grade. I swapped the sugar with salt in the teacher's lounge. "Yes, ma'am, officer." "Right away, ma'am," I stammered, fumbling in the overhead compartment. My hands suddenly felt like big, clumsy ham hocks. Papers, old receipts, a map of Wyoming from 1998, and a couple of rogue ketchup packets went flying, creating a small blizzard of my life's disorganized paperwork. I finally grabbed the sacred bundle and handed her the holy trinity of a trucker's life. She took them without even looking at me, her gaze fixed on my face, or maybe the sauce stain. It was hard to tell with the mirror shades. She flipped through my logbook. I could feel her eyes burning through the pages, seeing every little white lie, every fudged hour, every city I claimed to be sleeping in, while I was actually 3 states away making a delivery. It felt like she was reading my diary, if my diary was filled with lies about geography and sleep schedules. "Says here you were sleeping in Elko for 8 hours, she said, her voice flat as the desert floor. She tapped a page with a perfectly manicured finger, a bright red nail against the cheap paper of my fraudulent masterpiece. "Like a baby, ma'am. A big, hairy, snoring baby," I said, trying for a charming smile. Judging by her reaction, which was no reaction at all, it probably looked more like I was having a stroke. She didn't smile back. "Funny, 'cause dispatch had a report of a Peterbilt matching this description doing 75 through Carlin at 3 in the morning. Said he was swerving a little, maybe from a big greasy dinner." My blood ran cold. My guts churned. The triple bypass was threatening a hostile takeover. I was cooked, fried, served up on a platter with a side of federal fines and a suspension. I was already calculating how many years of hauling discount lawn gnomes it would take to pay this off. My career was flashing before my eyes. All the sunrises, all the diners, all the weirdos I'd met. It was about to end here, on the side of a dusty road, because of a triple bypass burger and a lead foot. She handed the papers back. "Step out of the vehicle, sir." That's it. The end of the line. They were going to search the cab, find my emergency stash of non-regulation Slim Jims and my collection of questionable air fresheners, and throw the book at me. I heaved my bulk out of the seat and onto the ground, feeling about 2 feet tall. The heat hit me like a physical blow. The air shimmered over the asphalt. The beast loomed over me like a disappointed parent. "Turn around! Hands on the truck!" she commanded. I did as I was told, pressing my hands against the warm metal of the beast. I felt like a criminal on a TV show. I could hear the gravel crunch as she came up behind me. I braced myself for the cold, metallic click of handcuffs, the final sound of my freedom ending. Instead, I felt her hands on my sides. She started patting me down, professionally at first, hips, legs, methodical and firm, a quick, impersonal sweep. But then, her hands moved up my back, slowly. Her fingers traced the outline of my shoulders, lingering just a little too long over the thick muscles there. It was no longer a search. It was an exploration. My brain, which had been preparing for arrest, didn't know how to process this new data. The circuits were sparking, trying to reroute. Her body pressed against my back. Through my sauce-stained shirt, I could feel the solid warmth of her, the hard buttons of her uniform, and the unmistakable, soft but firm outline of things that were definitely not standard police issue. My entire nervous system lit up like a Christmas tree in Times Square. A jolt went through me that had nothing to do with fear. She leaned in close, her lips right next to my ear. The mirrored sunglasses were inches from my head, reflecting my own dumb, confused, sweaty face. "You smell like freedom," she whispered. Her breath was warm and smelled like cinnamon. "And burgers." My brain short-circuited. The circuits blew. Smoke was probably pouring out of my ears. What in the Sam Hill was happening? Was this a new kind of sobriety test? A very, very weird interrogation technique? Was I having a heat stroke? Maybe that burger had finally done me in, and this was some kind of bizarre, sexy angel of death. Thank you, officer." I squeaked, my voice cracking like a teenager's. She pressed a little harder against me, a subtle, deliberate shift of her weight. "I'm going to put my hand on your shoulder. You're going to act like I'm arresting you. But you're not going to say a single damn word. You understand me?" "Ma'am, I don't." "Do you understand?" she repeated, her voice dropping back into that no-nonsense command tone that turned my spine to jelly. It was a voice that expected and received total compliance. "Crystal," I managed to choke out. She put her hand on my shoulder, spun me around, and gave me a firm shove toward the passenger door of my own truck. To anyone driving by, it looked like a legitimate bust. Big trucker finally gets his comeuppance. Another one bites the dust. I probably looked like I was being arrested for crimes against fashion, given the sauce stain. "Get in," she hissed, her face inches from mine. The mirrored lenses reflected a very confused, very sweaty, very large man. "But my door's over on the other side." I protested weakly. It was a matter of principle. A man has his side of the truck. It's sacred. "Get in." I wasn't about to argue with a woman holding a gun, a badge, and the most confusing set of motives I'd ever encountered in my life. I clambered up into the passenger seat, a place I hadn't sat in for 15 years. It felt wrong, unnatural, like seeing a dog walk on its hind legs or finding a salad on my plate. The whole cab looked different from this angle. She didn't get in. She ran back to her cruiser. For a second, I thought it was some kind of bizarre prank. Maybe she was going to write me a ticket for being too ugly and drive off laughing. The ultimate power play. But then she came running back, carrying a small, heavy-looking black duffel bag. She yanked my driver's side door open, threw the bag onto the sleeper bunk behind the seats, and slid into my throne, into my seat, my sacred space. She adjusted the mirrors like she owned the place. She slammed the door. The cab was suddenly very small. It smelled like diesel, onions, and her. She smelled like expensive perfume and pure, unadulterated trouble, a dangerous, intoxicating cocktail. She looked at me, a wild, crazy glint in her eye. The sunglasses were off now. Her eyes were green, like jungle green, predatory green, the kind of green that signals danger and excitement all at once. "What are you waiting for?" she yelled. "Drive." "Drive where? You're in my seat. This is against every trucker code in the book. It's sacrilege. You don't just sit in another man's chair." "Then get over here and drive," she snapped, already hoisting herself over the center console and into the passenger seat like a damn gymnast. It was the most athletic and alarming thing I'd ever seen a woman in a police uniform do. 1 second she was behind the wheel, the next she was beside me, all long legs and determined grace, landing in the passenger seat with a soft thump. I scrambled over the console, my knee banging the CB radio, my gut getting momentarily hung up on the gear shift. It was the least graceful maneuver in the history of human transportation. I probably looked like a bear trying to escape a phone booth. I finally flopped into my rightful place, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird trying to bust out. I looked at her. She was breathing hard, a frantic energy coming off her in waves. "Go!" she screamed, pointing at the windshield like it was the promised land. "Hammer down, now, before he gets here." "Before who gets here?" I roared back, jamming the key in the ignition. The beast rumbled to life with a cough and a mighty growl, as confused as I was. "My husband," she said, looking frantically in the side mirror. "The sheriff. I just stole his private stash, and he is going to be biblical levels of pissed off." I didn't need another invitation. I slammed the truck into gear, the shifter groaning in protest. I checked the mirror. Nothing but empty road. I eased off the shoulder, and then I buried my foot. The beast roared. The twin stacks belched a cloud of black smoke, a big middle finger to the law, common sense, and my clean driving record. The tires bit into the asphalt, and we were gone. The speedometer climbed. 60, 70, 80. The beast wasn't built for speed. She was built for power. But right now, adrenaline was a hell of a supercharger. The whole cab was vibrating. The half-eaten bag of barbecue chips on my dashboard danced itself right into the trash bin. The hula girl I had glued on there years ago was shaking like she was having a seizure. The whole world outside turned into a blurry streak of brown and blue. I risked a glance at her. She was still looking back, her knuckles white, as she gripped the oh-crap handle above the door. The tight bun had started to come undone, little blonde wisps framing her face. She looked less like a cop and more like a beautiful, terrified bank robber. "Okay," I said, my voice a couple octaves higher than usual. "Okay, let's just take a breath here. You're a cop. You stole something from the sheriff, who is your husband. And I am the getaway driver in a vehicle with the turning radius of a small moon. Have I got the basics right?" She finally turned to look at me. A slow, wicked grin spread across her face. "You catch on quick, big boy. And what exactly is in that bag?" I asked, nodding my head toward the sleeper. "Is it, money? Drugs? Is the cartel going to be looking for this truck? Because I just got her a new wax." "Better," she said, her green eyes sparkling. "It's his leverage, his pride and joy, the one thing he loves more than his job." My mind reeled. What could it be? Secret government files? The missing Nixon tapes? A collection of shrunken heads? My imagination was running wild. Maybe it was a blackmail file on the governor. "So you're not a cop?" I asked, hoping for a simple answer. "Oh, I'm a cop," she said, tapping the badge on her chest. "Deputy Donna, but I'm off the clock." This is personal. Personal enough to involve a civilian in a high-speed chase with the chief lawman of the county. "You looked like you could handle it," she said, giving me a slow once-over that made me feel like I was the burger, and she was ready for lunch. "Big truck, big guy, that sauce stain on your shirt. It told me you weren't afraid of a little mess. Lady, I'm a trucker. My entire life is about avoiding trouble, especially trouble that wears a badge and has a jealous husband." Just then, the CB crackled to life. A gravelly voice I recognized as Gator Bait. Gary, a flatbedder out of Louisiana, came through. "That's a big Peterbilt, westbound on 80, moving like his pants are on fire. Got a smoky on his 6, and it looks like he's gaining." Donna's eyes went wide. "They're talking about us." "Of course they're talking about us," I yelled. "We're the most exciting thing to happen on this highway since they repaved it. We're a rolling soap opera. Every driver from here to Salt Lake City is listening in right now." We crested a hill. I looked in my mirror. Way, way back, maybe 5 miles, I saw it. A tiny black and white speck, kicking up its own cloud of dust, and it was moving fast, very, very fast. He was closing the distance. Donna saw it, too. "He's coming," she whispered, And it wasn't a whisper of fear. It was a whisper of pure, uncut excitement. This woman was a thrill-seeker, a chaos merchant, and I was her damn wheelman. Okay, think, Sam, think, I muttered to myself. This highway was a straight shot for another 50 miles. He'd catch us. A Crown Vic is nimble. The beast is a battleship. I needed an advantage. I needed terrain. I needed to get off his turf and onto mine. Is there an exit? An off-ramp? A dirt road to nowhere? I asked her. She shook her head. Nothing for miles. It's just desert. Not for me, it ain't, I said, a grin finally breaking onto my own face. The fear was still there, a cold knot in my gut, but something else was bubbling up underneath it. The same feeling I got when I was about to try a new, questionable food truck. A mix of terror and giddy anticipation. This was living. About a mile ahead, I saw what I was looking for. A small, almost invisible break in the sagebrush. It wasn't a road. It was an old service path for the power lines. Probably hadn't been used in 20 years. A sign that once read, "Authorized vehicles only," was bent and rusted, barely legible. Close enough. Hold on to something, I told her. And I mean it. Grab on like you're the last lifeboat on the Titanic. What are you? She didn't get to finish. I yanked the wheel hard to the right. The air brakes hissed like a nest of giant snakes. The tires screamed bloody murder. For a terrifying second, I thought we were going to jackknife, that I was about to turn my beautiful rig into a 40-ton metal pretzel. The whole trailer swayed out, threatening to pass me. But the beast held. She groaned and shuddered like she'd swallowed a bad burrito, but the big tires caught the edge of the dirt path, and we plunged off the highway and into the desert. Branches scraped along the side of the cab with a sound like giant fingernails on a chalkboard. The whole truck bucked and swayed like a mechanical bull on meth. Donna was thrown against the door, then against me, her shoulder digging into my arm. A little squeal of surprise and delight escaped her lips. Everything in the cab that wasn't bolted down went airborne. A half-empty bottle of water, my sunglasses, a road atlas. It was a zero-gravity situation for a second there. I heard a series of expensive-sounding thuds. You know, for a big guy, you move pretty fast. Only when properly motivated, I said, and a beautiful, possibly crazy woman holding my freedom in her hands is prime motivation. The tension in the cab was thick enough to spread on a cracker. It was that moment, that point of no return. You can either talk your way out of it, or you can lean into it. And Sam McCarty has never been much of a talker when action is on the menu. She closed the small gap between us. Her lips were soft, and they tasted like cinnamon gum and rebellion. The kiss wasn't gentle, it was hungry. It was the culmination of a high-speed chase, a federal offense, and a whole lot of pent-up boredom on her part. It was a kiss that said, "Thank you for the chaos." When we finally broke for air, she was breathing hard. "I was right," she whispered. "Freedom." My brain, which had been operating on pure instinct, finally rebooted. "The bag," I said, remembering. "What's in the damn bag? Before your husband shows up with the entire Nevada National Guard, I gotta know what I'm an accessory to stealing." She laughed, a genuine throaty laugh this time. "You're not gonna believe it." She climbed over the seats into the sleeper. The uniform pants strained in ways that were causing a serious threat to my concentration. She grabbed the duffel bag and heaved it onto the passenger seat. "Go on," she said, a mischievous glint in her eyes. "Open it. Witness the sheriff's secret shame." I hesitated. Part of me still expected it to be bricks of cocaine or a human head. I reached out and pulled the zipper. It opened with a smooth, expensive-sounding zip. I peered inside. It was not cocaine. It was not money. It was not a shrunken head. The bag was filled to the brim with yarn. Balls of yarn, in every color of the rainbow. Pink, lavender, baby blue, sunshine yellow. And nestled amongst them were knitting needles of all sizes, pattern books, and several half-finished projects. One of them looked suspiciously like a tiny sweater for a chihuahua. I stared. I blinked. I stared again. "Yarn," I said, my voice full of disbelief. "You staged a statewide police chase. For yarn?" Donna collapsed into a fit of laughter. She laughed so hard she had to hold her stomach. "It's not just yarn," she gasped, tears streaming down her face. "It's his secret knitting. He's a closet knitter. He goes to a secret stitch and bitch circle every Tuesday with a bunch of old ladies from the church. He tells me he's at a tactical briefing with the boys." I picked up the tiny, half-finished sweater. The stitching was immaculate. The sheriff knits dog sweaters and scarves and doilies. He's working on a tea cozy that's shaped like a saguaro cactus. She howled. "This is his competition stash. The Washoe County Fair is next month, and he's entering the Advanced Textiles Division. He thinks he's a shoo-in for the blue ribbon. He's been trash-talking some old lady named Mildred for weeks. He calls her Mildred the Merciless because she once won with a crocheted Afghan he considered structurally unsound. The sheer, unadulterated absurdity of it all hit me like a ton of bricks. I looked at the yarn. I looked at this wild, beautiful woman in a cop uniform. I thought about a hard-as-nails sheriff, secretly perfecting his pearl stitch and beefing with an old lady named Mildred. And I started to laugh. I laughed a big, deep belly laugh. The kind of laugh that starts in your toes and shakes your whole frame. The whole cab of the beast was filled with the sound of our shared, hysterical laughter. We were two lunatics, hiding in the desert, laughing over a bag of stolen yarn. Her laughter died down, and she looked at me, her eyes soft. "Thank you," she said. "For what? Aiding and abetting a textile heist?" "For driving," she said, her voice dropping to a husky whisper. "For not asking too many questions. For this." She leaned in again. The world outside, the sheriff, the highway, the bird baths in my trailer. It all just melted away. There was only the dusty cab, the smell of her perfume, and the promise in her eyes. "You know," I rumbled, my hand finding the back of her neck, my thumb tracing her jawline. "This sleeper's got a surprisingly comfortable mattress. Memory foam." Her smile was pure sin. "Is that so? And the suspension on this rig is second to none," I added. "Air ride cab, air ride seats. Smooth as silk. Show me," she whispered, and started unbuttoning her uniform shirt. "And folks, let me tell you, the sleeper of that Peterbilt is my sanctuary. It's where I sleep, eat, and contemplate the universe. But for the next little while, it became a playground." The old logging path saw some action it hadn't seen since the last big timber haul of '78. The beast's suspension was put to the test. The air ride seats got a workout they don't cover in the warranty. She was all fire and energy, a tightly coiled spring of boredom and frustration, finally let loose. And me? I'm just a humble trucker, always happy to help a lady in need. Especially a lady who knows how to use a pair of handcuffs for non-regulatory purposes. The cabin was rocking so hard I was worried a satellite might mistake us for a minor seismic event. The dice hanging from my mirror were swinging like they were at a Studio 54 reunion. It was wild, it was frantic, and it was the furthest thing from a boring nature documentary you could possibly imagine. Suddenly, a loud crash-bang thump echoed, from just outside the truck. We both froze. My heart, which had just been running a marathon, tried to leap out of my throat. "What was that?" Donna whispered, her eyes wide with panic. "Shh," I hissed, my own panic rising. He found us. We were a tangled, half-dressed mess. I was trying to find my pants. She was looking for her badge. It was a silent, frantic comedy of errors. I imagined the sheriff standing outside, listening to the truck creak, his face turning a darker shade of purple with every passing second. I slowly, carefully, peeked through a crack in the curtains of the sleeper. I saw a flash of brown fur, a huge mule deer, probably startled by our activity, had crashed through the brush and was now staring at the side of my truck with a look of profound confusion before bounding off into the desert. I fell back onto the mattress, a wave of relief washing over me. It was a deer. I breathed. Donna looked at me. I looked at her. The panic on our faces slowly melted away, replaced by mischievous grins. "False alarm," she whispered. The tension of the moment, the shared fear, it just added fuel to the fire. We didn't bother looking for our clothes again for a good long while. In the warm, quiet aftermath, we were a tangle of limbs, uniforms, and sauce-stained shirts. She was lying with her head on my chest, tracing patterns on my arm. The sun was starting to dip lower, painting a corner of the dusty windshield in shades of orange and pink. "You're not so bad for a big, scary trucker," she murmured. "You're not so bad for a yarn-stealing cop," I grunted, feeling more content than I had in years. She giggled. "Harold is going to be so mad. Not about the chase. He'll probably find that funny. But the yarn, he's going to lose his mind. He was trying a new cable knit technique." "So what's the plan, officer?" I asked. "We drive to Mexico?" "Start a new life as fugitive knitters." "Tempting," she said, sitting up. Her blonde hair was a glorious, beautiful mess. She started pulling her uniform back into some semblance of order. "But no, the fun's over. I got what I wanted. A little chaos. A little adventure." She looked at me, and for a second I saw a flicker of something real, something more than just a thrill. But it was gone, as quickly as it came. "I should go," she said softly. "He'll have called off the search by now. He'll just be sitting at home, stewing. I'll give him back his stupid yarn, and we'll have a huge fight, and then we'll make up. It's our dance." I felt a pang of something. Disappointment? Maybe. "So that's it? The great yarn heist is over?" "That's it," she said, leaning in and giving me one last lingering kiss. "But—" And that's when we saw it. Not a deer this time. A blinding flash of light swept across the cab. Headlights. We both froze. Slowly a sheriff's cruiser, its light bar dark, rolled into the clearing and stopped, its front bumper 10 feet from mine, blocking the only way out. My blood turned to ice. Donna's face went pale. The car door opened and a man got out. He was big, not as tall as me, but wide, all chest and shoulders, with a square jaw and a flat-top haircut you could land a helicopter on. He was wearing a sheriff's uniform, and he did not look happy. He didn't draw his weapon. He just stood there, his hands on his hips, his shadow long in the setting sun. "Donna," he boomed. His voice was even deeper than mine. It was the voice of God, if God was a very disappointed father. Donna winced. "Hi, Harold," she said in a tiny voice. I was paralyzed. I was half-dressed. My pants were somewhere on the floor, tangled up with her gun belt. I was wearing my boxers and one sock. This was it. I was going to die in the Nevada desert, shot by a cuckolded, yarn-loving sheriff. My obituary would be a punchline for generations of truckers. Harold ignored me completely. He just stared at his wife. "Donna, I have been worried sick," he said, his voice a low rumble of frustration. "I called your mother. I called the station. I was about to issue an Amber Alert for my own damn wife." "I needed some air, Harold," she said, trying to sound defiant. "Air. You needed air. You led me on a 100-mile-per-hour chase down Route 80. You nearly gave old man Hemlock a heart attack when you flew past his goat farm," he roared. Then his voice dropped, filled with genuine pain. "And you took the bag. It was just a joke, Harold. A joke? A joke? Donna, the Stitchin' Bitch Fall Gala is in 3 weeks. My Fair Isle sweater isn't going to finish itself. Mildred is already halfway through a cable-knit Afghan that is, frankly, derivative, but technically proficient. That woman is a shark with those needles, Donna. A shark. I am under a lot of pressure. Do you know how hard it is to find merino wool in this shade of cerulean?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This wasn't about the affair. This was about crafting deadlines. Donna was trying not to smile. "I'm sorry about your sweater, honey." Harold's eyes finally landed on me. He squinted. I tried to make myself smaller, which is impossible when you're my size. "And who the hell is this?" he demanded. Before Donna could answer, my trucker instincts, the ones that had kept me alive through blown tires, blizzard conditions, and truck stop sushi, screamed one thing at me. "Run." I didn't think. I acted, in one fluid, surprisingly agile motion for a man of my considerable girth. I launched myself toward the passenger door. I threw it open, tumbled out onto the gravel, and hit the ground running. I was a glorious, ridiculous sight. A 300-pound man in nothing but polka-dot boxer shorts, and a single, sad-looking gray sock, sprinting into the desert scrub like a terrified, half-naked hippo. "Hey, get back here," Harold bellowed behind me. I didn't look back. I just ran. Sagebrush whipped at my bare legs. Rock stabbed at my one sockless foot. I could hear them arguing behind me, their voices fading as I galloped into the twilight. It wasn't an angry argument anymore. It sounded familiar. And then I heard it. I heard Donna let out a peal of laughter. Then a moment later I heard Harold's deep, rumbling chuckle join hers. I'd been had. I wasn't an accomplice. I was a prop. I was the rubber chicken in their weird, high-stakes marital comedy routine. I ducked behind a large cluster of rocks, my lungs burning, and peeked back. I saw them talking by the cruiser. She handed him the duffel bag. He looked inside, a wave of pure relief washing over his face. He hugged her. He actually picked her up and spun her around. Then they got in their separate cars and drove away, leaving me alone in the desert, half naked and smelling faintly of another man's wife. I waited until the sound of their engines was completely gone. The desert was quiet again. It was just me, the coyotes, and my wounded pride. I trudged back to the beast. My magnificent, loyal truck sat there, silent and waiting. The door was still hanging open. I climbed inside. My pants were on the floor. My other sock was there, too. And on the dashboard, tucked under the windshield, was a crisp $50 bill and a napkin. Scrawled on the napkin in bright red lipstick was a message. "For the trouble. You were worth every second. Call me next time you're bored. D." Underneath, she'd written a phone number. I stood there for a minute, in the quiet cab, holding the napkin. I looked at my reflection in the dark windshield, a big, dumb, grinning idiot. I wasn't mad. I wasn't heartbroken. How could I be? I threw my head back and laughed, a loud, booming laugh that echoed out into the empty Nevada night. I had been pulled over, abducted, used as a getaway driver, seduced, and abandoned in my underwear, all because of a knitting competition. Thought it was the best damn Tuesday I'd ever had. I got dressed, fired up the beast, and carefully backed her onto the highway. I put the 50 in my wallet and tucked the napkin safely in my logbook, right next to all my other little secrets. I turned the radio up, loud. Tom Petty came on, singing about running down a dream. I stomped on the accelerator, and the beast surged forward into the darkness. I had a load to deliver, miles to drive, and one hell of a story to tell, and I was starving. Somewhere up ahead there was a truck stop with my name on it, and a double cheeseburger that was calling to me like